Hey guys, so I always get a lot of questions about if I ride IRL, what discipline I ride, about the horses that I ride, and basically just all the horse questions, which is totally expected since this is an equestrian related channel. So today I just wanted to do a little podcast style story time, train with me to talk about all of my experiences, my riding journey from start to finish. And I do have some IRL pictures that I can add in without revealing my face. Please don't come murder me. But to be honest, I have a horrible memory, and so I'm gonna do my best to piece this all together in a way that makes sense. I honestly have really been enjoying these like podcast style train with me videos recently, and I'll probably do more of these every once in a while. So if you think of a topic that you would like me to discuss in a future one, then let me know in the comments. All right, let's get started with not even me. Let's talk about my ancestors. Oh my gosh, that sounds so dramatic. So I honestly didn't really fully know any of this until pretty recently, so it's just crazy looking back how I happened to always enjoy horses when I guess apparently my grandparents were both these huge equestrians. My dad told me this after I started riding again, like as an adult, but I guess apparently I come from a long line of horse lovers. Both of my grandparents grew up on a ranch with a bunch of horses, so wow, this is such a plot twist for my life. Like, I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat. Anyways, both of my grandparents were super into horses basically, and even my dad grew up riding horses in the summers on their ranch. Working back now, realizing all this, I feel like I'm the only descendant who really carried on this love for horses without even knowing all of this backstory until after I already am interested in horses. Apparently I had a horse destiny. I'm a true soul rider, guys. And growing up, I really didn't have much more exposure to horses or other equestrians than the average person until I was probably 9. I think that's really similar to a lot of people who love horses. We literally are just born liking horses for some reason. I swear you're born with it sometimes. Okay, I guess that's not completely true. I had seen and interacted with horses super briefly a few times in my life before I actually started riding. At a county fair, I apparently rode this horse on these little hot walkers. I mean, I don't remember, but it happened. And then I also did a few trail rides with some extended family when I visited them in the summers, so I'd been introduced. As a kid, my uncle had this ranch near my house, and he did have a few horses on his property that people had leased land from him so they could keep their horses there. And I do remember one horse in particular, Scooter. He was this chestnut gelding, and he was a bit wild. He was kind of spicy. So I don't know how I came out of that experience to loving horses, but I was obviously dedicated. He was known to buck and kick, so he was a little Wild West ranger. I do have a picture of me and my brothers riding this horse at his ranch, and as you can see, the situation looks sus. He looks upset, and I'm a little concerned. Me and my brothers and cousins actually did spend a lot of time out on the ranch after school and on the weekends sometimes, and he would literally just drop us off in the middle of his property in a pickup truck, and then we would have to go bring the horses hay and stuff. And I remember really being interested in the horses and just doing basic things with them, like brushing them and leading them around. I never rode them or anything because they were definitely not safe for kids or beginners. But while my brothers were throwing sticks at each other, I was trying to gain trust with the horses because I am a horse whispering queen. In the meantime, I had basically been playing horse games from the beginning of time. I always had horse games on my little Game Boy Advance and on desktop, probably most of us. Most of them were really crappy and 2D, but I do remember the first horse game that I really loved was this PC game. I think it's called Saddle Up by Pippo Fennell. Saddle Up Time to Ride, something like that. Man, I picked this baby up at a Target one day and that was it. I have a specific memory of playing this game after school and struggling with quests because back then there were no tutorials or resources to help you. So to this day, it still bothers me that I never completed this quest line where you're running away from the bad guy, and I kept getting stuck and not finding the clues. I honestly have nightmares about it to this day. At some point that CD disappeared, and to be honest, it's probably wedged between some cords and the wall, all scratched up at this point. Anyways, even though I hadn't even started riding horses at this point, I was still obsessed with them. I didn't just play horse games either. I collected the most random horse books I could so I could learn all of the coat colors and their anatomy and everything about them, as you do. I still remember looking at this horse picture book at Barnes & Noble after school one day, and I had that thing for years. I wish I kept it, but now you know I have a bad memory because you're probably thinking, Rose, you're horrible at horse coats. I know. What happened? Am I right? And I would generally just read all these book series about horses too. I read the Heartland series and Black Beauty, all of the basic ones we know and love, and then some obscure ones that were too hard for me to read. I also consumed basically all of the horse TV shows that you can. I watched literally every episode of The Saddle Club. I mentioned The Saddle Club in a video before, and I said it's some British show, and you know what, guys? I stand corrected. It's Australian. My accent radar is a bit off. Anyways, Veronica was the villain season of my childhood. At one point, I wanted to put a bunch of these horse posters all over my room, covering like all my walls and my closet doors. And my mom was like, H, no, you're not putting that on the walls. And I remember just being like so mad. And looking back, it's not a big deal. Like I survived, and that's just a random memory I thought of. After consuming basically all the horse media I could, it got to the point where I just needed to interact with a real horse. So anyways, time goes on and I get to 3rd grade, and I had this group of friends, and we would literally play pretend horses at recess. Like we had these intense plot lines of our horses in our stable, and our horses would have foals, and horses would go missing and die, and we would buy new horses. And I still remember I was kind of mad because my best friend at the time who played this with us would always be in charge of the plot. We all have that one friend, and she made my horse die, and we would get in legit fights. Like we wouldn't talk to each other at recess. And I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Imagine RRPs and SSO say chat, except this was IRL. I can't speak for everyone, but I would say a lot of kids go through this phase at some point in their lives. I am slightly humiliated, but that is what we did. Wholesome as frick. No regrets, full send. Anyways, one of my friends in the friend group did ride IRL, and she would always tell me these stories about the stable she rode at, her lessons, and about her heart horse. This horse was a dapple gray named Gloria. The fact that I still remember this is insane. This was her lesson horse, and she was always talking about how she was saving up to buy her. Actually, you know what? I don't even know if it was her lesson horse. I think it was a horse owned by someone at the stable that she rode at. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Anyways, if I remember correctly, Gloria's owner was like not a good owner, and she was trying to save him. Honestly, we're talking like a Saddle Club level plotline. And keep in mind that this is a 3rd grader talking to another 3rd grader, and this conversation is being remembered by me now all these years later. So I don't know how this really translates, but I just remember wishing that was my life. She had horse posters on her wall in her room, so I just wanted to be like her. I was like, okay, I want to ride at a barn, and I want to save up to buy my heart horse, like yes queen. Okay, not really, I can't remember the specifics, but I think I asked my parents for a while to take lessons, and at some point they realized I was serious about it and they signed me up. They were honestly pretty supportive because the closest place to ride was like kind of far away, and it was obviously very expensive, but they still helped me out with it. And kind of to preface, I was a kid with like a lot of anxiety. I think especially I had a lot of social anxiety. Like I was super shy and I was afraid to ask questions, and I think this is important to why I eventually stopped riding for a while, because I just didn't have what it took at that time. But anyways, I showed up for my lesson, and it was a Western group riding lesson, and the instructor was a bit mean from my memories. I'm sure she was just trying to keep everyone safe, but I still remember off the bat being like uncomfortable, and I was low-key a bit scared of the horses because I had never been around them much. So she showed me roughly like how to tack up a horse and groom it, and then walked me around to meet some of the horses at the barn. I remember it being super overwhelming, and if you've ridden before, you know it's a lot of information to take in, and it takes several exposures and honestly sometimes years to get some of the basics down, because it's not like you're learning how to ride a bike, an inanimate object. Like you're learning how to interact with a living being who has a personality and moods. I still remember a few of the horses that I interacted with at my lessons. One was a flea-bitten gray named Johnny, and I honestly think he was a pony, at least from my childhood memories. And then there was this black warm blood named Cash. Cash scared the literal frick out of me. I don't know if he was spicy or if I was just a scaredy cat, but I still think about him in his stall, and it was like, this horse is gonna kill me. I was so dramatic. I remember at some point in my lessons, my instructor was like, I'm gonna have you ride Cash today, and I was like, no way. But even though he was bigger, Johnny was a lot meaner. He was like so sassy and irritable, so like I kind of get it now why she wanted me to ride Cash. I do remember while I was being introduced to some of the girls and the horses of the barn, one of the girls got gut punched, like kicked so hard in the stomach while she was grooming her horse outside the stable, and everyone was in like this raging panic. So it was a bit chaotic and was not the best intro course for me. I'm sure we've all seen it, and I don't need a second reminder. Anyways, that's how my lesson started. I don't think my instructor did the best job explaining things to me, because I remember tacking up my horse by myself with no help way too soon. But here's the thing, I kind of get it now as an adult, because I'm sure she had like 10 girls to teach and she did not have time to cater to one person. Like, I understand it, but that's also a bit dangerous. So on one of my lesson days, I tacked up the horse I was riding, probably with limited knowledge and help, and then was walking around an arena on the horse. And like a lot of beginners, I'm sure I was really scared to try trotting for the first time. So my instructor was kind of like trying to motivate me aggressively to do trotting. And Anyways, I didn't know how to sit and I didn't have my balance. So honestly, I must have gotten my leg caught in somewhere it shouldn't have been. Maybe I was gripping that poor pony for dear life with my legs, but I honestly have no idea. I do have a memory of my instructor saying the girth was twisted, but I don't know if that's accurate. And also, how does that even happen? Like SOS. Anyways, Johnny started bucking and going crazy in the arena. He was literally jumping over things. Keep in mind, there were also like other lesson people in there and I had barely trotted before. It was so scary and I held on for dear life for what felt like an hour, but was probably, I don't know, 5 minutes. Impressively, I did not fall off. My instructor kept telling me to jump off and she was clearly concerned, but also I have very little memory of what was happening around me. For obvious reasons, I couldn't make myself let go to jump. Like that goes against all the instincts for humans, and I never really learned how to jump off safely. Anyways, after that experience, I remember my instructor at the next lesson just taking me individually on a little trail ride around like a path by the stable, which looking back was like a redeeming thing about her. She was trying to give me some confidence back and just encourage me to like not give up. So I did get back on the horse, guys, don't even worry. But then I did quit the next lesson after that. And looking back, I missed an opportunity to become a bull rider. Like, girl, what were you thinking? Missed opportunity. Anyways, my mom supported me and she didn't really try to force me to go back, but basically was like, homegirl, this is your choice. Like, you're choosing not to do this. So just remember. I don't know if I regret quitting though, because I think I wasn't mature enough or like brave enough or confident enough at the time to have any business riding. It's too bad I had to have that bad experience, which did build up a lot of fear of horses for me for obvious reasons. And I don't think it's all the instructor's fault either. I think it was partly my fault for being an oblivious queen, because riding is a dangerous sport. I really think it's important to be informed as a rider and to not do anything you don't feel 100% comfortable with, because in the end you're in charge of you and what you're comfortable doing that day, not your instructor. No one knows what you know or what you don't know, so you need to ask, and I wasn't really capable of doing that at the time. And like as a kid, of course, I was young and shy, but I was also really oblivious to my surroundings. Like looking back, I have very few memories, and I honestly think it's because I was not paying attention. My head was like in the clouds, like I never knew what events were happening. I was like, hello, are you in there? Like, I'm not like that now at all, thank goodness. But I much prefer that I didn't return to that stable. In my memories, it didn't pass the vibe check, to be honest, and I'm not sure if I would have lasted much longer at that particular barn. But for years, I really struggled with this because I always still loved horses, and during that time, I discovered Star Stable, which allowed me to live like vicariously through the game, riding all of my stable horses in a magical world, lol. There was always a part of me that still wanted to go back to riding, and as I grew up, I had gained a lot of confidence and overcame a lot of my anxieties that I had as a kid that stopped me from trying a lot of new things. And I would always watch a lot of IRL riding content on YouTube, which eventually led me to make the decision to go back. I still remember like when I made the decision, I was watching YouTube IRL and I was like, it's time. So fast forward to my literal 20s, I was finishing up with college and I decided I wanted to get back into riding. So I just signed up for lessons in literally probably the most sketchy way. Like I literally went on Google, looked for an online lessons site for listings, and I signed up without knowing anything. And I'm so blessed it worked out, and I've actually been riding there now for 4 years. And it was a really hard decision for me, obviously, because I had ended on a really bad note and I had let that kind of sit on my shoulders for 10 years. So it was scary for me, but obviously I wanted it bad enough and really pushed myself out of my comfort zone, and I'm so grateful. But for safety reasons, I won't post or share any information like about where I ride, obviously. And if you think you know me from your barn, no, I promise you don't. Like, you don't know me from your barn. It's not really that kind of setup. It's private. It's not an actual barn. It's where I live. There really isn't access to like these big facilities or barns. Like I literally ride out of someone's backyard and we use public trails. It's what us equestrians have to do when we don't live in some beautiful scenic countryside. The lesson horse I usually ride is Hank. He's a bay gelding who has a history with like competing in Western pleasure. He does barrels, and I've shared him on my channel before, so some of you may be familiar with him. Honestly, the perfect horse to get back into riding with. He is the sweetest, most patient boy. I love him so much. And I'm actually out of town for a little bit right now and I can't even see him. I haven't seen him in like a month, which makes me so sad. But back to my first lesson, I had honestly no idea what to wear. Like, why was that the hardest thing? Most equestrian content is honestly in English, so there isn't much Western representation. I feel like the influencer equestrian world is mostly English, and no shade, that's just an observation. I really do enjoy like equestrian content of all disciplines, even if I don't do it myself. Anyways, it was basically hard for me to know what to wear. So I showed up to my first lesson as an adult and basically just walked around the arena like on a lead, and then they quickly took the lead off because I kind of had some basics. And then the first time I trotted, I was so unstable. I was literally such a noob. But you know what? I kept going back, and I remember the first time I loped, it felt so fast, but it was also smoother than I expected, and I wanted to keep trying it over and over again to like get my balance and get better. And the first time I jumped over a log, it was crazy. And eventually eventually I graduated out of the arena and I moved on to like trail riding exclusively and like galloping through the fields, up and down hills, all kinds of terrain. To me, it's so satisfying to feel more comfortable around horses and to be able to tack up my horse and ride it independently and be able to have actual fun and hit up the trails. And for those of you who trail ride, you know it's a lot different than the arena. You have some crazy experiences for sure with trail riding, especially where I live, specifically with wild animals and pets. I've seen mountain lions on trails, I've run into house cats, I've been chased by people's pet dogs, I've been yelled at by random guys on the trail. It's been crazy, but I've gained so much confidence as I've learned more and I really enjoy it so much more. It's not all sunshine and daisies, but those really good rides keep you coming back and make up for all of the bad ones. And if you're considering riding, or if you're in that phase of still being like too scared, that's so normal. Every once in a while, it's normal to have a scary experience that kind of shakes your confidence in riding, even if you're more experienced. I've had my horse spook at trash cans and almost throw me. I've had my horse spook at wind and sprinklers and almost jump into oncoming traffic. I've had some crazy experiences that scared the crap out of me and made me question, why do I do this? I've had my fair share of those. I just want to say, for those who want to ride or are scared to go back, it does get better and easier, and if you just like stick with it, it's so worth it. I think you should also do what's best for you. It's never too late to start or go back, and if that's appropriate for you, of course. It's definitely a risk and you should only do what you're comfortable with. And that kind of brings me to now. I'm no longer a beginner, but I'm still learning so much. I just ride for leisure. I don't do competition or really any Western disciplines, and I'm not an expert. Again, I'm a leisure rider and I do use Western tack. I've never tried English, maybe someday, but right now I don't have the money or the resources to do that. I've learned a bit of barrel patterns at a slow pace for fun and have tried bareback, but usually I just trail ride and I love it. It fulfills my passion for riding. It fills my soul. I can't explain it. Eventually I would love to be able to ride more often if I get rich one day, and my dream would be to have like property where I could own a horse. This is a dream. It's not realistic for me at the moment, but that's why it's a dream. It would be amazing if that could happen someday. We shall see. If it does happen, I'll let you guys know and I'll share that with you. There's literally something like healing about riding horses and just being around horses. The connection with a horse is super special and not like anything else. Like, I'm an animal lover and still that connection is so unique. But that's my riding journey, my story, and it's still going. It's not done, so I can keep you guys updated on this, how it goes and what I'm up to in my riding if you would like. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed hearing a bit of my experience riding, and thanks for coming along this journey with me. Maybe we should do another training video with your first time riding experiences. That might be fun. I know I always like hearing stories like that because I understand a lot of you are not able to ride at the moment, and I lived off that stuff forever and I still do. Trust me. Been there, I get it. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.
I'm on thin ice, you'd never guess. I've been hiding a monster, keeping it quiet. I do my best.